Welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. Y'all, we are talking about a topic tonight that was brought up I think it was a couple weeks ago, where a friend of the Knowing Show, mentioned how they struggle with shame, and specifically toxic shame. So I wanted to bring this to the forum, bring this to the floor tonight for us to discuss together, because shame is something, I actually had to combat shame first. I look at my book Knowing, and this has been a work in progress over the last 3 years, and so much of my book, of what was initially catalyzing the book, was really this journey of coming to know myself and really exploring, okay, who did God create me to be versus how have I lived oriented towards who everyone else says that I am. The way that I liken it to is that my compass was fundamentally broken. It was navigating east and west, looking to the right and to the left, and looking for everyone else to tell me and validate who I am and my worth and what I had to offer the world. I would be looking to them to affirm whether I was lovable, whether I deserved a place at the table. And so while my book so much so focused on that for the last 2 years, as I was going through my 4th and 5th rewrite, I realized, I was like, wow, shame actually was the very first thing that I had to contend with. Shame was the very first thing that I actually needed to examine and become free from, in order to then be able to examine, okay, well, who am I? And really consider, who was I made to be? What is my potential? But for so long as shame was existing in my ear, I really, shame so often is like, think of it in the animated cartoons where there's like the little angel on one side and the little angel on the other. So often shame is the other voice in our head, just keeping us small and keeping us quiet and reserved. And shame really is the thing that I realized, until I was thinking about my entire process of coming to this point of being able to even square off with the person in the mirror, I had to allow for shame to have a rightful place in terms of, oh, you actually don't belong in my ear. You actually don't belong at this hierarchical structure of how and who I'm listening to. But it does have a rightful place. It's actually important that we do recognize shame is to be paid attention to, so that we can combat it with the truth, so that we can say, oh, that's actually not right. But if we're just trying to suppress what shame is telling us and ignore it and go about our merry way, it is still there, and actually can become much more dangerous if we're not paying attention to what it is saying, the actual narratives that it's espousing. So with that, before we dive deeper, I just want to jump here in the chat. Wayne, good to see you. And Matthew, you tell me first. Maybe I'll respond. DJ, hello. I'm so glad. My nemesis. I've missed you. And Matthew, no, we are live. Rudolph, hello. Jeremy, glad to see you. John Smith, this is 100% live, my friend. Burka, good evening. Thank you so much. Wishing you a great live stream. I love it. I'll take it. Y'all, this conversation of shame it's so funny. Even as I say that word, I felt it in my stomach, the discomfort there, because, shame is really one of those things that can just eat you alive. And it can keep you so small and so frail. And the thing is about shame is that it preys on the things we actually really do at our core believe about ourselves. People cannot tell us something we do not believe if it wouldn't make us upset if we didn't believe it to begin with. They prey on the things that we already feel weakened by. It's like a chink in the armor. And then shame shoots its darts right where there's the chink. And that's why we feel it so much. But if someone was to say something, we're like, that's silly. It's like if someone was to, I've actually gotten called this. Someone's like, you look like a trans, and they call me a man. Literally, I've had that in the comments many times. And there's nothing about what they're saying that I believe to be true that I'm just like, oh, look at that. It doesn't make an impact on me. And there have also been comments where that I have felt it. It was a chink in the armor because I had a vulnerability there. We have to have the vulnerability for shame to be able to play and do its work and to do its worst at the end of the day. We have to have some semblance of belief to then have it prey upon us. And we then allow for other people to hurt us by not tending to those chinks in the armor and not actually making sure that and I'm talking about vulnerability in the kind of in the negative way, where we're not doing the work to heal, not doing the work to pay attention to the things that we're carrying with us. And thus we're exposed to what other people might say or do, actions that could really cause us detrimental harm. And the thing is about this is that once it gets in where there's the chink in our armor, immediately it's like we stumble back. We're taken out of the moment. We're taken out of the momentum that we have that's moving forward and the progress we're making and the intention with which we're living our lives. All of a sudden that chink in the armor, it really is like getting shot. It's like, oh, okay, let me regain my composure. Let me re-steady my foot. Let me remind myself of what's more true. And the worst part is that in that staggering back and being hit by shame, sometimes in the coming back, we've lost our footing to the extent that we're no longer on the right path. Shame is so powerful, but it is so powerful because it is inside of us already. And so shame just preys on the insecurity that's already there. I'm just checking in with the chat. Christopher Adams, hello, my friend. Too much shame can overcome a person. Think of Judas. I find a way to overcome shame is to acknowledge it for what it is and then take that leap of faith forward in repentance, like Peter did. It's so, what you're saying is exactly right. Like, I think of it as kind of like shining a spotlight on shame. Shame cannot exist in the light of truth. And so this is where you and I knowing what the shame narrative is, exactly to your point, Christopher, if we don't know what we're contending with, there's no way we can fight against it. But if we're familiar, if we've become aware of what those narratives are, then we can really go toe to toe with it and shine the spotlight of truth and say, no, I'm going to call you into the light. Shame cannot exist where there is light. It hides in the darkness. I usually, honestly, I think of shame as kind of like this big curtain that kind of hides us and keeps us from even being able to see clearly to begin with. There's different things we've been talking about over the last couple of days around what can basically, like when you go to the optometrist and you put your face towards the dial and they adjust it, the dials shift our lens through which we view the world. There's different lenses that corrode our ability to see clearly, and shame is one of those. So we have to know, okay, this is the right dial for that shame narrative. That's the dial that I need to adjust to bring me back, reorient me towards what's true and towards what is even more powerful than what that narrative is. Because the thing is, that narrative is powerful indeed. And it again, it's a chink in the armor. The thing about shame is that so often it preys on something very, very deep in our core. And so, when you think about the chinks of the armor, usually it's kind of where there's not a lot of flesh. Like if I got hit in the stomach, there's a decent amount of flesh there to keep me safe. But if I get hit right here in the shoulder, I get hit even, the Achilles heel, that's the worst part. And so if you get hit in these places where there's very little flesh or skin, there's a greater vulnerability because it's that much more near to the surface. Same thing goes with these things that we believe about ourselves that are kind of right below the surface. People can't see it. We may not even be aware that it's there. But man, when someone says the thing, it's like, oh, the knife twist right there in the chink in the armor. And so part of us doing this work and even having this conversation, why do I feel so much shame? So much of it is because we haven't actually shown a spotlight on it. Because in shining the spotlight, it's like, oh, that's actually not that scary. So it's kind of like, shame's hiding this big curtain, and behind it we think is this horrible, ugly truth, kind of like the Wizard of Oz. But then when you pull the curtain back and reveal the truth, it's like, oh, no, that actually is not the truth at all. And actually, most often, y'all, what shame is covering up was the action or the inaction of a little kid or someone who really tried to do their best. For me, one of the biggest points of shame in my life, and I actually think it's worth for all of us to consider, like, what am I feeling shame over? One of the things that I just felt so much shame over in my life was, and I didn't even know this was there. I thought it was just grief, because a lot of times shame can exist with other emotions like anger or grief. Honestly, sometimes even kind of like a pleasure or a joy even. So where I felt shame was actually mixed with grief. The morning that I received the phone call that my brother-in-law was killed, I just remember thinking, I remember thinking like, okay, I need to pray. And then I was like, oh, well, I can't pray. That praying wouldn't change anything. I can't bring him back. There's nothing to do. And in me realizing like there's nothing to do, and I'm just like, yeah, it was a bad time. I didn't ever call my sister. And I suppressed that day in my memory for 8 years until I finally let myself square off, shine the light of truth. And in that moment when I remembered, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't actually even been able to grieve that day because I've been hiding so much from that day itself because of the shame that I have over how I reacted. I didn't value who I was and the being of even just my presence enough to then realize that my sister just needs people there and needed me there. And I wasn't there for her. And I'll forever regret that. And at the same time, my shame was hiding that from me. I couldn't fully grieve and kind of move through the process of hearing the news that day. And that day haunted me just the whole day. It wasn't even just that shame moment. It was because I had this grief that I was carrying with me for 8 years that I didn't allow myself to move through. And so that shame, once I shone the spotlight of truth on, oh, that's what really happened. One, I actually went and apologized to my sister 8 years later. And it's interesting. I actually felt a freedom. We get free from those old narratives and those old experiences that are buried beneath us. That was a 21-year-old Christene Marie who had never gone through grief, had no idea how to act. And the only way she valued herself at the time was by what she did. So when she couldn't do anything, there was a severe and total lack of value in my identity in terms of who I am, who God says I am, who I am, and the presence I get to bring to other people, y'all. And so this is what happens when we have shame around who we are and our identity. We actually fundamentally cannot love because we withhold the very healing presence. When people are in grief, they actually don't need someone to do something for them. It's like sitting in the ashes. It's actually not saying anything. It's actually the inaction that's more loving than anything other than what we could do for somebody, because we cannot bring that person back. We cannot make it better. But our presence, who we are, is actually a conduit of hope and healing. And because I had so little value and worth placed in my identity, I was fundamentally unable to love her the way that she needed to be loved at that time. And so that is on the other side of not reconciling with shame, not recognizing the narratives that are held over us by shame that can really be detrimental to those that we love. And so I want to lean into this a little bit more with you guys about how to identify those shame narratives, because shame, I had to move through, okay, this is the power that shame has over me, in order to then actually be able to see myself clearly, see myself as God created me to be, see the darkness in me as well as the light, because there's always both. It's never one or the other. It's always a mix of both that we find when we look in the mirror. There's always the light and the shadow. And so to that point, I'm just going to jump over here in the chat really fast just to say hey. DJ says, curious why you apologized to your sister. You dealt with it the way you needed to at the time. I apologized. For those of you who just joined, I apologized to my sister for not calling her when we got really terrible news. And it actually felt like more so I did it for my sake, and I think so much of forgiveness where we forgive, me forgiving you is me releasing myself. And I think actually apologies kind of work in a similar way. I think it is right and good to apologize for the other person. But man, we need to be able to forgive regardless of an apology. And my apology was actually my own way of kind of releasing myself from that hold. Because here's the thing, if shame is preying on our own chinks in our armor, we likely have ourselves by the collar. You know, we talk about holding on to grievances, and for the most part, we've been talking about holding other people accountable for what they did. But how often are we shaming ourselves and holding on to our own grievances for the things that we hate that we did, but we're not willing to really admit that we did it because we just, there's so much emotion wrapped up in it. So I was shaming myself. She probably didn't even, I think she didn't even remember. I mean, that day was just the worst day of her entire life. And so it's not like she knew who called. And at the same time, it felt, in my apology, it was freeing for me. And it was also by way of me apologizing, I found for me in the past, it actually is a helpful reminder, don't do that again. You know, it's kind of like I'm instilling a new value. I'm declaring something by way of apology. So those are my reasons for apologizing. Circuit Wave, hello, good to see you. Mike says men and women experience shame totally differently. I would love to hear, oh, Mike, you said, okay. Mike says women have the freedom to express their grief and then live to their 90s carrying their shame to their grave. I think I might have said, I think I might have misread that. Do you mean that men live to their 90s? I think you meant to say men live to their 90s. So women have the freedom to express their grief. And I think you mean to say, and men live to their 90s carrying their shame to the grave. I have heard so much of that. I've heard so often how hard it is for men. There hasn't been a forum, a place for like divulging the pain or the areas of shame in our lives. We have not been taught how to grieve. We have not been taught how to be vulnerable. And then when we do start being vulnerable, we end up vomiting emotion and vulnerability on everybody. And it's like, oh gosh. And then it's like, okay, see, I shouldn't have told you, so we don't know how to do it. And when we try to do it, it's really kind of abrasive for people because they've never experienced that part of us. We don't even know it well ourselves. And y'all, isn't that so interesting? This is where I think I probably hold a very unpopular opinion. I really believe it is our radical responsibility to go inward and do the work. Yes. And people have asked me, how are you licensed to talk about this? Because I've gone inward, rather than being, outsourcing my healing to other people, to therapists. Sure, therapists are helpful, but y'all, every single one of us has the opportunity and the ability to do our own work. And I really believe that. And it's not our partner's responsibility to help us, our parents, even though we can blame everybody around us for why we are the way we are, until we take radical responsibility for our own healing and thus our own freedom as a result of that. So male or female, regardless, it is our responsibility to learn how to do this. And yes, there is help along the way. We get to be in even just communities like this where we get to talk and be honest with each other. What a blessing is that? And I do think that there's 100% a place for therapists and even, mental health support. If we need to go to a mental hospital, I know a lot of folks who have really been helped that way. And there's something about even AA. I've heard of folks who go to AA and they haven't even been addicted, but it's a place to share, because there hasn't been a forum for communicating at this kind of level. So incredibly important. One of the first times that we really started getting vulnerable and honest on the show was a gentleman was sharing how his girlfriend of 20 years committed suicide. And he was like, I've had nobody to talk to and I haven't processed it. And y'all, isn't that just so sad? That's not at all how we were intended when we were created. We weren't given phones in the creation story, regardless of what creation story you believe in. There were no phones. We were in communication with each other and in connection and in community. And we need that more than ever before because we're in this era of May, I guess, is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we really are in this epidemic in so many ways of just really, really struggling and really suffering. And people are turning to AI companions more than ever before. And so just a comment that, man, y'all, it's our responsibility and our privilege. What a blessing that we don't need other people in order to heal and to move through our journey of actually being able to come out on the other side of that. We get to experience that for ourselves. We don't need to wait. I'm just looking here in the chat. Letting go of pain is the best way to forgive ourselves. Shannon, that's so well said. DJ says, so you should say something like, I should have been better. I should have been there. I let them down. You know, I'm glad that you actually are calling this out, DJ. So often when we apologize, it is for us. And so I think that you're absolutely right. It's, man, this light is like, whew. So often it's, I wish I had done it better or done it differently, or I should, you know, and even with I wish, it's, I didn't know better, but I wish I did. Like, I wish I had done better. I wish I had done something different. Because to your point, this is where forgiveness, to what kind of this whole topic is gearing towards, forgiveness is the most gracious thing in the world, because so many times we are really doing the best we know how. I did the best I knew how in my marriage, in my relationships with my family, and hearing the news about my brother-in-law, the way that I cared for my sister after he was killed. It's like, I did the best I could, and it wasn't perfect. And I wish I had done things different. And I wish I had, fill in the blank. But I think that that's actually the most gracious response to shame. Because shame, the hardest thing to try to combat shame with is to not speak the truth. We didn't know better. We didn't know in so many ways. And so now we're not talking about when you actually actively move into something that you should feel guilty for. That's the difference of shame and guilt. Guilt is actually like there is wrong done by you, and therefore there is a guilty sensation in us, versus shame. Shame comes in and attacks the essence of who you are. That's the difference. In so many ways, there's embarrassment, humiliation, guilt. Shame says not just what you did was bad, but you are bad. And that's what I was effectively plagued with for years and years and years. And y'all, this is where it preys on the actions of other people, the treatment of other people. Again, preys on something we deep-seatedly believe about ourselves. And so my adult relationship preyed on a very deep-seated narrative that started when I was a kid, that something's wrong with me, that I'm not lovable, that it's just me and God against the world. I had these narratives that came from experiences in childhood that were just later reinforced in adulthood. So when we're talking about shame, we actually have to get to the root of where that narrative started from. The narrative itself isn't actually shame. The narrative is a belief that we have about the world and about ourselves. And that narrative, that belief, was formed with, there's a logical reason for it forming. Logical or emotional. This is where logic and emotion are just so important, to hold honor to both and afford honor to both. Because logically, maybe there was a very logical situation that, enveloped or unfolded, that you fell into, that thus this narrative or belief about the world came about. Or maybe it was really just emotional. As a kid, we're so intuitive. There was a Stanford study that a baby, multiple babies are nursing, and the mother's looking down on them and cooing at them. And then all of a sudden the mother just stops and she just goes deadpan. She's not angry. She's just emotionless. And the babies stop nursing and they start getting fussy and they're looking at their mom. And then the second she starts cooing again, they drink and it's normal and they're happy. Ever since we came out of the womb, we are predisposed to sense and pick up emotional attunement. So we can tell when our caretakers are happy or sad. And so with shame developing its voice, it's kind of like the representative. It's like the antagonist. There's antagonists in so many ways. And I like to think of shame as an antagonist because it might be vocalizing some of those old beliefs and narratives, but really what it's alerting us to is that there is an unprocessed experience in the past that actually needs attention, that needs healing. And thank God, this is actually, we read this morning in A Course in Miracles. It's like, oh, how do I reframe this situation happening right here, right now, that would otherwise make me angry or annoyed or anxious, depressed, insert blank. How can I take this moment happening for me right now and recognize, oh, this is actually a blessing. This thing that's making me pissed off is showing me that there's actually an area that I need to heal, and thus become more free and walk more in my ability to enjoy life and shine my light. You know, we talk in the morning show about just reminding ourselves of who we are in so many ways. The main function we've been talking about is that you and I are here to exist as lights and to bring a presence to every person around us. And the thing that's cool about that is that every single person has the opportunity to function that way, to step into that role and to step into that identity. But if our identity is tethered to the external, and thus shame is the most active voice in our heads, if we think about kind of what takes the place of shame in terms of the other voice, it would mean that I know my value, and therefore intuition and even the voice of God is speaking to me. So either I am placing my value in everything external, and shame or fear, guilt, all of these kind of external voices are the representatives in so many ways of being horizontally oriented. And or, you know, and I'm not meaning to be dogmatic here. There's many other categories, but, you know, kind of simplifying it. Or I am rooted and grounded in who I am and who God says that I am. And therefore intuition is a voice that I value and honor more than most any out there. The voice of God is something I honor and value more than most any voices out there. And so it keeps us safe, and it tethers us to truth vertically. Our compass is now oriented north. With who does God say that I am? Who did he create me to be? And it fundamentally cuts off the chain to shame. I think of it for whoever has seen A Christmas Carol. Such a good film, especially with George C. Scott. Jacob Marley comes in. He's a ghost, and he visits the Scrooge, Ebenezer Scrooge. He hates Christmas, and he always says humbug anytime people say Christmas. And so he is visited by this ghost, Jacob Marley. He was his former business partner from 7 years ago. He died. And Jacob shows up, and he's got all these blocks and chains, and it's like ledgers and money boxes. And Scrooge is like, first, what the heck am I eating or drinking that's making me see you? So he doesn't believe it's real. But what Jacob says is look, this is all things that I haven't worked through effectively, that's tethering me to the past. And in the allegory of the story, he's like, I actually cannot move forward into redemption because of everything tethering me to the past. So for us to really live in the fullness of our identity and in our mission and why we're even here, we actually need to resolve those points of shame, those beliefs that show up in those when people hit us with in the chinks of the armor. So I'm going to take a pause and come into the chat. Hello, friends. Right, just going down. Jay Franklin says, women are like the ocean. They flow like waves with many ups and downs, yet men are fixers. If man can't fix things, we retreat into our caves to suffer our problems alone. I'm wondering, I actually would love, can we take a minute? Can I ask you all some questions around your experience with shame, and even just your experience with moving through pain in general? Have you had an experience where you have had an external relationship that was really positive in helping you interact with shame, and or have you only pretty much ever felt safe, to your point, going into the cave? Like Jay was talking about, going into the cave and retreating and experiencing that alone. So I'd love to know if you guys are willing to share. DJ says, the internal critic is the one telling you mostly about your shame and guilt. It's a little voice saying you could have done more. Dude. Norman says, I read something about therapy being mind control. Word. I don't know. Thankfully, I found a few therapists that I really liked, but I wouldn't put it past some people. Andy, hello. Max. Circuit waves. I really need prayers. Tell me. I would love to. I would love to pray for you. Christopher Adams says, trying to reach out to therapists for men is nearly impossible these days. I've been neglected before by licensed therapists. What? Licensed professionals? Dude, what the heck? That's why I place my trust in Christ and his love. Well, I'm all with you there. And it's also like, it's so upsetting. It's so upsetting how there really just is, man, this is why I freaking care so much about this topic, because it is so, it makes me mad. It makes me mad how many people suffer in silence and there's no escape. I mean, I didn't have one. It was just my journal for 8.5 years, or I guess 6.5 years of just like, nobody had a freaking clue. And what a way to live. You can't live when everything is being suppressed and you can't actually really experience the, Chris Dizzik says, life is good. My chickens laid 23 eggs today. I freaking love this. Like, look, there's so much joy to be experienced in life, but at least for me, I actually could not experience the full vitality of life. Something as wonderful as my chickens just laid 23 eggs. Also, how do I like get on your distribution list of eggs? But we're not free to enjoy those wonderful things if we're like haunted by the past. Just scrolling down to see. Okay, Mike says, yes, I meant men live in their 90s carrying their shame. Wit, I do. And you're welcome to hang out here, but we just don't talk like that. Mike, I use speech to text. That honestly, I do the same thing. That's why I realized, I was like, I think I know what happened. Robert, hello from Colorado. Good to see you. Proco, hello. The modern women live in shame at menopause. Oh, interesting. Interesting. LRLK. Yeah, I think I had a glitch for a minute. Okay, so total text is Christine. Very sweet. Jay says, fix your audio. Am I broken up right now? I don't know if I'm broken up. DJ says, I've done EMDR, CBT, exposure. Oh, I don't know what that is. And all the therapy that is offered. I still struggle with survivor's guilt and shame. I take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, constantly making progress. DJ, I have so much respect for you. I cannot fathom. I really thank you first for your service. And also, I wonder, you know what I wonder? I'm sure you've asked this so many times of just like, why? But I really believe that like you're here for a reason, you know? Oh, your sound's lagging. Ugh, dang it. I'm going I kind of want to like exit and come back in. I don't know what's going to happen. We're just going to try it. All right, I'll be right back. Did that work? DJ, I just, I wonder around with survivor's guilt. I just wonder if there's something around like if there's we've talked about this before on the morning show, like kind of finding a glorious mission, like something to just occupy. The etymology of intention is really encompassing our mind, body, soul, spirit. Like every part of me is oriented and focused in a direction. All of me is intended towards an outcome. And I just wonder if like finding the passion, finding the mission, finding something where it's like, I don't know. I don't know, but like this is my glorious mission. And in honor of these folks, I will live a life worthy and profound and experience the richness of life. And it's almost like for everyone who had fallen, living to the fullness of what you can. Christopher, oh my gosh. I wasn't there when my dad died 5 years ago in the ICU. I've had to live with that. But my dad would have told me to just go and enjoy life. Wow. I'm so sorry you weren't there. And I do completely agree about what your dad said, you know? And I think of my brother-in-law too. Like, gosh, he lived big. Gosh, he was intentional. Like somebody, I know, I get, we, in the chat, you know, we talk about like, okay, how do I live in the present and enjoy the little things like freaking 23 eggs being laid today. Awesome. And also living with intention and like having a mission. It really is this delicate balance. And I really have found, there's a book called The Second Mountain, and it talks about the first mountain is really oriented towards hold on one second. I just saw. I just want to be careful with what we're putting here in the chat, just making sure that we're being appropriate. So just a warning. It's such a delicate balance of being in the present and also having this glorious call and this glorious mission of like, I want to live every day with intention. And so the book, The Second Mountain, that I was just referencing, it talks about like for the first part of our life, we're really living on that first mountain and like really oriented towards what do I want and what's my career going to be, and really kind of being inward focused of like, what am I doing with my life? And then at some point we realize, oh, life's so much more about us. And then we have this opportunity to realize like, oh, I'm actually not satisfied living for me. And then we see the second mountain, which is effectively living for community and like really leveraging anything that caused us pain to propel us into purpose. And so often, y'all, that's why we look back in so many ways. What are those moments in childhood that really were hurtful, that really did cause these narratives to form? There is so often we will pull forth those nuggets of like, oh man, okay, why did this happen? How can I leverage? How can I alchemize? How can I harness this and make this into gold? And that's what we're talking about in so many ways. It's sometimes it's like, oh man, that belief needs to go. I need to replace it, new target. Let's keep going. That experience, need to heal from that. Let's keep going. But sometimes, and I would even say a lot of times, how we were raised, man, it was by no accident. And if we know how to alchemy, like have alchemy as a value of the process of turning lead to gold, how can I make something beautiful from this process? How can I turn these ashes into beauty? You know, we hear about the phoenix rising, but it is from the ashes itself that they then can rise. If there were no ashes, there would be no rising story. And so it's not about, you know, being, well, I won't even go there. Let me jump back into the chat. I don't want to derail us. It's a double-edged sword, DJ says, because I know my buddies would be like, get up, do something. And I've had so many others off themselves that have struggled. So I'm doing good thus far. Dude, DJ, I'm so glad. I love that you said I'm doing good so far. I actually think that it's so important that we actually do champion our own selves. Like, I'm proud of the way I'm living, or I'm proud of where I'm going. And yes, I still struggle with this, and I'm choosing a different path and look at the good that it's yielding. You know, we talked the other night about our time and the return of our time. What are we yielding for time invested? And I think that it's actually really important that we celebrate the return, celebrate the yield. Like, y'all, we only get this one life that we know of. And I do think that there's more after this. And there's so much reason for celebration in so many ways. There's so many reasons to self-perpetuate dopamine hits, because otherwise we're going to become addicted to this thing to do it for us. So how can we allow for the beauty of the ordinary and the beauty of the everyday, and even just celebrating our own successes to be the self-perpetuated dopamine hits, so that, again, we're not externally sourced. We're not addicted to the external to fulfill us. But man, we're really able to find our own value and worth within. We're able to be sourcing our creativity from within. We were talking last night about not being consumers, but being true creators. And when we allow for ourselves to be able to have shame be put to the sidelines, then we can really access that authentic part of us that allows for creation. Lewis says, why there's not children in this chat, is it? I think, honestly, I've actually had kids come on the chat. So I like honoring for the sake of my own values, but also for little babies. GH, pre-recorded live, guys. No, my friend, we are live. Pain for men is usually the catalyst. DJ, and it was for me too. It really, really was for me. Actually, we were talking, I think you were there last night. We were talking last night about how much of creation can actually be catalyzed sans pain? Can you actually really have that? Life's an ironic tragedy. It must be experienced forthwith, but only makes sense in reverse. Christopher Adams, coming in hot. I love that. Ministry of Men. You look English. I really want to respond with an English accent, but I won't. Thank you. Jody girl, hello. Regardless of pain, poverty, shame, or loneliness, we can endure it all through Christ. The joy and peace that surpasses understanding. The pressure that your life isn't idealistic is gone. You are free. So beautifully said. And Jody girl, I love that that's where the peace that it actually doesn't make sense that I would feel peaceful right here, right now. And so I'm so grateful you brought that up, because that is so true. Andy Carpenter. Amzad, show your tattoo. I don't have one, but I'd love to get one, to be honest with you. LRLK, thank you for your fireman career. I honestly have so much respect for, I feel like firemen, policemen, it's just like, thank you for your service in so many ways. What you guys put your bodies and minds and selves through. My brother-in-law just started serving as a volunteer firefighter, and I know he's going to see a whole lot. So DJ, it's been a battle for years, but I shall not be defeated. It sucks. It would be easier, but alas. Thank you for how you do the work. Like, seriously, DJ, I love your mind, and I love the way that, I don't know, I've been blessed because of you. So, and I know a lot of other people have too. So thank you. And I'd be curious, y'all, tomorrow I'm actually going to be taking time to really think through the community and figure out how we're going to do this. A friend of mine, he'll go live on Zoom and YouTube and everywhere else, but because the people are part of his community, they go live with him, and then they'll have like a group conversation, which I think is the coolest thing. So I'm thinking of maybe doing that at some point, and kind of having that be a part of it. Cause like, I would love to have kind of a back and forth with you guys. So anyways, I'll keep you guys posted, but I think that we'll probably do that soon. Annie Carpenter, I'm so glad you joined. Thank you so much. Prime Rays, sometimes I feel like pain is a teacher that teaches us to rise within ourselves. Oof, that's so beautifully said. And y'all, isn't it so interesting? It's like us against us. That's where really having our orientation turned inward, where it's not like I'm no longer basing my identity, my success, I'm not comparing anymore. Now it's me against me in so many ways. How far can I go? DJ says, embrace the suck. Yeah. Christopher, that's why I personally ascribe to the Stoics. They acknowledge the reality of mortality, but added because of the fragility of life, it garners a high value in what we do each waning moment. I'm with you 100%, my friend. Oh my gosh. Matthew, hello. We harness by changing our perception and realizing how special we truly were before the world tore us down, and you always had what it took and need to believe in self. It really, I love that you said so much of it is kind of returning to that kid that we were. That's why it's kind of this concept of like, when you pull back the curtain of shame, you find this little kid, like this little kid who was just waving back there the whole time, being like, help, like, pay attention, love me, heal me. Leo, hello. Thanks for joining. I definitely believe in reincarnation. Have you ever had a dream where you didn't know the person or remember the place you were? Hector says, yes, 100%. Dub Styles. Oh, I'm so glad to see you. Every experience is a lesson and a blessing. I love that. Absolutely nobody. Thanks for hanging out. I love that. Maine, hello. Drew Young, Mundo, Nando. Hi from Brazil. Dictator, hello. Some user, the hardest part is convincing myself that I am worth it, that I'm worth the breath I am breathing. It's absolutely crazy head speak. Point, counter, point, constantly. Like me asking questions to you. Man, I know what you mean. Not for my own experience, you know. Y'all, I think all of us at the end of the day wonder, am I worthy? Like that's what shame preys on in so many ways. It's that question of, am I worthy? Am I worthy of the breath that was breathed into my lungs? And that is where the truth counters shame of, okay, what does the ultimate authority? Because when my husband left, he said, I don't love you. I don't love God. I don't love your family. And I was like, well, there's not much I can do with that, you know? And who has a louder voice and more authority than my husband about my worth and who I am? God. And so this is not about adhering to a religious system. It is about a relationship with the Creator to understand the created. How did He make me? How am I fearfully and wonderfully made in the most beautiful, true sense that thus can be the voice that is more true than someone else looking you in the eye and saying, you're not worthy. I don't love you. You are not enough. Because to combat that, it's just my word against yours, unless we stand on the shoulders of someone who has a greater authority and a greater, stronger voice than anyone else could ever have in this world. Man in the Hat says, I have a sign on my refrigerator for people to read. Don't follow me. You won't make it. Those that know me say it's perfect for me. That's why I stay alone. Man in the Hat, I'm so excited for when we meet. I was just sharing with everybody. I don't know when you joined, but we're going to be doing at least Zoom virtual gatherings starting here soon. So I'm excited. What kind of questions? Thunderous, I think I'm so sorry. I don't know what you're asking in that regard in terms of questions. Because you're the image of God. Y'all, can you even, because here's the thing, if we don't see ourselves as worthy, what are we saying about God? I love that you said that. If I look in the mirror and I hate who I see and what I see, I'm made like Him and you're made like Him. So if we really want to establish that relationship with Him and know Him and know the truth, I think that forces us to, there's a surrender of even our ego, because ego might actually be the voice saying, oh, you're not worthy. That's too good to be true. You're not that special. Whereas really we're actually looking at the God of the universe and saying, you're wrong. I'm not all that. And it's like, no. He says that you are. And ego actually can take the form of false humility, and that can be very damaging. Philomonase says, what is the thing that most people misunderstand about you or your personality? I actually love this question for everybody. If everybody is open to answer this, I actually think that this is a really beautiful question. You know, this is like, let's take this moment to be like, okay, what would it look like if we were to describe ourselves? Who are you? Who are you? I would love to hear people answer this. In the meantime, I'll respond to a couple comments here. Cookie, I'm scrolling shorts and I think I was supposed to see your live to say this. Regardless of what you think, you are loved, cared for, thought about, even if you don't feel it, see it, or think it. You are worth so much more than you could ever know. Thank you. Thank you so much for scrolling and stopping in here. I'm so grateful you said that. Y'all, and isn't that's the truth that we're fighting to believe in so many ways. It's like that's the thing that we really need to strive for. All right, so I would love to see what people have to say in regards to Philemon's question, because here's the thing: so often, what is misunderstood about us can be what shame really comes in and kind of preys on and latches on to, is when we feel misunderstood and not known and not seen. Cookie, to your point. Okay, I'll go ahead and answer. I'm not seeing anybody. Oh, I love this. I'm a funky 𝐤𝐻𝐞𝐫𝐞. I'm an enigma. I love that. Siraj, hello, Siraj. I'm so glad to see you. So good. I'm just what my experience has made me, Dubstyle says. I've never heard anybody say that, Dubstyles. I love that explanation, definition. Douglas James, you're on my feed 2 days in a row now. I love that. Thanks for saying hi. He came in on Instagram. Oh, Man in the Hat. Yay. I'm going to go check that out. All right, DJ, the question is, what is pinned here? What is the thing that most people misunderstand about you or your personality? And y'all, this is a brilliant question, because it's actually really important for us to, where do I feel misunderstood? Where am I actually not known? Because that actually could be something that really actually is having isolation come in, and like the misunderstanding of it's like something that separates us. Something people often take for granted in me is how I'm someone that no matter what, I will always be present in anyone's corner of the boxing ring, so to speak. Loyalty is everything. Oh, I love that. That's so well said. I in the corner of the boxing ring. I love that. I love to think of it as the arena. And so you said boxing ring. I'm like, yes. Mahmood. I wish I could help you. I'm sorry. I feel like you're probably going to find the perfect person at the right time. I hope so. Jay Walrus, greetings from Iran. Hello. Thanks for joining. Guys, isn't this such a blessing that we can all exist together? My gosh. Man in the Hat, I'm so excited to go listen. Man in the Hat sent me an opera song the other day, and it was just incredible. Josh says, image borderline looks like AI. I'm going back to my video. Is it because it's blurred? Oh, this is my chair. I don't know if that's what you think looks like AI. Honestly, I'm impressed at how many people think that this is AI, because I'm like, I feel like AI is not that good, but I know that it can. I don't know. I guess it is. I watch these ads where I see somebody talking and they like switch out the celebrities. And I'm like, what? Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. All right, so y'all, I am going to call it a night. I need to go do some work. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. Louis says, where do you think I should go to find a wife? I've been single for 3 years and don't know where to find anyone. Well, first, I can't really speak to that because I don't know you. But I will say, the more I have actually gotten out of my house and gone and actually explored life and lived life and put myself in new environments and new situations where I've actually been like, okay, I need to be brave here. Like, this is actually uncomfortable. That's where I've made some of the most wonderful friends. That's where I found my darling, was at a marketing conference, super random. And, you know, I even met my first husband actually at a conference in Florida. It was a Christian conference. And it's just, there's something around like, I'm actually here looking to join a volleyball league, and I want to go line dancing. And like, if we get out of our comfort zone and actually get into a space where we really start living, truly experiencing life, I think that there's so much to be found on the other side of living by, like, not just living vicariously through the phone and how other people are living, but really, really living fully. I just think that there's a lot there. There's a lot to be found in terms of experiencing and joy, but also in terms of potentially a life partner. Who knows? Oh, yes, I'm having tea. Mahmoud, are you having tea too? Come have tea. Radian, I am in my condo. Christopher Adams, how do we protect our inner child? Man, now I can't leave. Oh, what a good question. I think, you know what? I think I'm going to save that for our Friday night live. I think I'm going to take it exactly like that, and then let's talk about that. I'm looking to see if I've got a guest. I have a guest. Oh, tomorrow. Oh my gosh, you guys. This person who's coming on the show tomorrow, it's going to be one of the best conversations, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. I don't know how many of you guys can watch it, but his name's Justin Donald. He's the founder of Lifestyle Investor, but he is just an incredible human. Like, he was telling me about how, well, I don't know. There's just a lot that we're going to dive into. I'm so excited to talk to him. And frankly, I'm excited to learn from him. So I'm going to be a student tomorrow by far. So we've got 9 a.m. tomorrow morning Eastern. We're going to be doing our show in the morning, The Knowing Show, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. We're joined by Justin Donald. And then, yeah, I'm going to be scheduling, I think at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, we're going to do trivia. So we've got, tomorrow's a full day. And I have to go live and do my trade show tomorrow. So I'm going to be going live 4 times tomorrow. It's going to be a busy day. Y'all, thank you so much for hanging out. I'm going to save that question, Christopher, because I love that. How do you protect your inner child? Let's talk about that. Wait, I got distracted. Well, we won't talk about that tomorrow. Thursday night, I do have a guest, and we're actually doing a live real-time like marketing consultation, which is actually super funky and fun. We'll talk about it Friday, how to protect your inner child. So y'all, come hang out with us tomorrow night. We're playing trivia. We're going live tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Probably going to be one of the best conversations. This man is so wise. And you know, there's something about learning from people who have done really, really well in their business. So if you have business questions, life questions, I love talking to people who are, yes, successful in business, but their personal lives, like their wife really loves them. Their kids love them. That, to me, is a real mark of like, okay, you're having your priorities right. He's like, I have to be at family dinner every night. That was a boundary that my wife and I created. And I love that and I respect it so much. So, thank you all so much for hanging out tonight. I will see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night, y'all. Sleep well.